restaurants don't have too many chefs, although the restaurants are getting bigger now and they do have a chef, but it's
But
usually
also,
one person.
You have to figure out what's in
They
the
have to
old days.
figure out what you want to do.
Well, a lot of people call themselves executive chefs
They're
in
not.
restaurants, but a restaurant doesn't really have an executive
cook.
chef realistically. That's a
I-
hotel term for a hotel,
Yeah.
big hotel, with a number of
I
restaurants.
called myself a cook, and I become a chef. You know, and this, do you have a response to the word chef in Europe means boss. Then you have to add chef de cuisine, maître chef de cuisine, master chef de cuisine to that in order to really make the point. But the key what Noel was just saying is today the basics are still the same. They will not change. Sautéing is sautéing is sautéing. What changes is the approach. What changes is the nutrition. What changes is the flavor, and what changes is the ingredients which are available. That's the difference today. The rest is really all the same. You see, you have to study, like in music. You have to study classical music in order to play modern music.
Mhm.
They have 12 basic notes. In cooking, we have 12 basic fundamentals. In order to do classical cuisine, okay, or modern cuisine, these basics are still the same as they were then. You know, it's just both like under the but even brilliant Savarin, 500 years ago, he said, it's a chef's duty to tempt the appetite, but it's a customer's duty to curb it. Well, there was until now. See, today, we didn't just tempt the appetite. We also have to make sure that we give them what's called food, which doesn't make them sick, or doesn't make them so full that they just drop dead on the floor. Again, even this concept has changed. Okay, the understanding of what we have. In the old days, you had a menu with about 200 items on it. Well, today we have restaurant, they have only 2 items on it.
Mhm.
Well, they're safe what's it called in the storage, the whole thing is, and they change them every so often.
Mhm.
But there's not this big menu anymore, like in a diner where you have 500 items. What's it called?
And 2 guys in the back.
And 2 guys in the back. That's another thing. When I started in my
One of them's a pot
in my
washer.
apprenticeship, it was a small what's it called, family restaurant. We had about 20 people working in the kitchen. When I went to the Bayerische Hof, they had maybe about 120 working there. When I worked in the Piccadilly, there were 250. There were 60 bakers and pastry chefs alone, but 250 was even cooks of the whole thing. Today, 250 they had then, you may have 10. You know, and in most places you maybe have just a chef and a helper.
Hmm.
They have to produce the same food as they did then. So they have to make certain type of what's it called? I would say shortcuts, but I have to make a certain way of understanding what they want, who's their clientele. Here comes the thing is what's it called? And then see you work with the smallest amount, but interesting presented in your talk. We talked today about molecular cuisine. Well, molecular cuisine, it's a fad. Yeah, like when Nouvelle cuisine came in. My father used to ask for a magnifying glass. It was the food.
Where's the food?
There was not, well, it was a fad. You see, I just came then.
A lot of plate.
Came a different type of food. Okay, I think the next millennium we have to really consider our portions. Our portions are too big. What's it called? I ate yesterday in a restaurant. My God, I went down the ice house, and the portion was so big I take it home.
Mhm.
And I said 2 things. See, if that portion would have been half that size, I would have fully satisfied. It could have been cheaper.
Mhm.
At the same, we wouldn't have waste food. You see, when you say take it home.
And did that represent value to you, the extra portion,
Yeah,
the
that's
extra
right.
part? No, right? And that it was inconvenient that you had to take it away?
And health. Health, the whole thing is today we have the 2 biggest killers today is obesity and diabetes. You know, and cancer. And it's all food related. When you think about it, as a matter of fact, if you have time to explain that, is we had one day the chief of the Cheyenne Indian of South Dakota came to the school. They were selling buffalo. But before they sold it to you, they interviewed you if you respect life. They interviewed me, and Mr. Metzner and other people. There was the chief there, and there was the medicine man there, and the elders, they asked questions. So we started talking to the whole thing. And he said, when the American natives were forced from a protein nation to become a carbohydrate nation, their mental and health fell apart. And because there were protein, buffalo, meat. And when they were put into reservations, they gave them more meat, maybe a cow a year. The rest was all vegetables, and then such fell apart. I said to myself, it's interesting, let's look at the fall and rise of nations, not from the political side, but from the food side. And here's what I found out. The Romans, biggest nation in the whole world, control the world. What do they? They're gone. They ate from lead vessels. You know what lead does to the mind? Mm-hmm. The atrocity and everything happened. Then just what they called killed themselves and fell apart. Then you take the Greek, the most physiological nation in the world. They gave us Homer and all this, and what did they? They started fooling with the food by putting bicarbonate of soda on their vegetables to make it more colorful. And after a while, their bodies started to deteriorate, and they lost all their wars, and boom, gone. So we look at the Mayans, for example, biggest empire in South America. What did they? Well, their food chain broke because they couldn't get the food into the cities, and they just disappeared. So yes, there was political parts also to that, but there's also a lot of the food, you see. So you look at all these nations, African nations, European nations disappeared because, let's look at us, America. We are today the most powerful nation on earth, militarily, business-like, everything, even so, we are probably still the most powerful nation. But if we don't control the obesity and the diabetes and the cancer, 1,000 years from now we are gone like all the other ones.
So what do you think causes, is that related to the corporatization of America, the emergence of corporations controlling?
No, I think what's related to is that, and again I talked to many people about it, is we have what's it called, everybody wants to eat very fast. So we started the fast food business. That's the bottom of the whole thing. We eat fat. Government says 100% meat is still 50% fat. So if they have 100% meat burger, what's it called? You eat 50% fat automatically. Every single day. Mm-hmm. Boom. Okay? The next thing you see is we have is what we call the family business. The whole thing is it's the diners and everything else, okay? And here came in the Texas-size portion, the bargain. I give you a big portion, and the eyes are bigger.
The 50-ounce steak.
Exactly, the whole thing. It's a policy is that our eyes are always bigger than our stomach, okay? So that became a norm, okay? Then you see we have the upper 150, where they eat very nutritiously because they keep small portions. Mm-hmm. Like in Europe, a steak, largest steak in Europe is about 5 ounces.
Yeah, 4 or 5 ounces.
That's the biggest steak you have. Our smallest steak is 12 ounces.
Yeah.
Okay, so we automatically overeating. So it became a brainwashing of the populace of the United States, that overeating. Okay, and once it's set in, it's very difficult to get out there. So I think, in my own opinion, is we need to design vessels. Like the bartender, they have that little sugar thing they have.
Oh yeah.
And it looks so big, and he puts it in there, and look how much I get. It's measured. And then he goes on top like this, and he says, they give me so much alcohol. They give you less than they're supposed to give you, but it looks big. So if we design vessels where the food looks bigger than it is, we slowly can bring people down. And then we have become a meat-eating nation. Mm-hmm. We eat meat for lunch, for breakfast, for lunch, for dinner, for snacks. Everything is meat. Our body was never designed to be a meat eater. So automatically with all this meat, we cannot digest it, and then comes the cancer. Is because I mean it's and there came. I mean, I like history and I study history, and everything has a reason why. When we had the serfs or the peasants, the serfs were the European slaves. You were not allowed to hunt, you know, and you had to work for the Lord, the whole thing. So you only got certain things. For example, they didn't get flour. Didn't get bread. The bread was for the king. You know. So the dried bread what they had, they throw down to the serfs. You got that, okay? The little meat they got. So they ate mostly what they call vegetarian. The whole thing you see is with a little meat supplements once in a while in between. And they were healthy. But then they got free, and suddenly they want to have everything. What's it called? The bouillabaisse. One of the healthiest soups you can have. Well, now they add lobster and clams and all that cholesterol. Now they want to have heavy cream. They don't want to have just use water and milk, the whole thing you see is, now they want heavy cream in there. And not just a little bit, a quarter heavy cream. Okay?
Reduced cream.
And they want to have butter, and I would say butter pounds. You know, and they threw it in and see is, and suddenly because that the body start to again deteriorate. Because he can cook a nice meal with just a little flock of butter in it, not a pound, and he can have just a little bit of heavy cream in the end to fold it in, and make it nice nutrition. But now we have to pour a quart of heavy cream in there. Forget the milk now, but make it not just with a heavy cream.
I think too, you know, it's the other side of the balance of that is the activity. You have a calorie in, and then the calorie out is the burning of the calories by activity. But
that's
we've become such a convenient culture that we don't have that physical activity.
Exactly.
I
In
have
the
a
old days,
different theory.
yeah, let me just finish one. In the old days, you worked. In the morning you got up, you worked, heavy, labor, at nighttime you went to bed, get up, you worked. Today we sit behind a computer. But eat the same way as they ate them. And there's no thing, and then of course, just to take exercise on the outside, you know, myself, look at me. I do 3 times a week, I do 1 hour exercise with a trainer. On the rest of the day, I train by myself, it's equal to 1 hour, bicycle, walking, everything else. And even, I can hardly get down, the whole thing is. You know, and so it's the policy, it's not the old heavy work which you did day by day, which gave it a muscle tone and everything else. Our whole system has changed, but we have not changed our eating habits.
Likely you have to walk about 3 hours a day, every day,
Yeah,
in order to keep up with it.
That maintains. You understand?
What I was thinking is that corporations are part of the problem. And I think when you talk about the Mediterranean diet that they advocate, we don't have a Mediterranean diet. They say the Mediterranean diet is eating foods from the Mediterranean. That's not a Mediterranean diet. My family still lives in Italy. They have a Mediterranean diet. You know what it is? They eat what they grow. They eat what they raise. Corporations. There's a guy in Plymouth where I used to live. He owns 18 Dunkin' Donuts. There's Michael Jordan, the basketball player, 181 Starbucks he owns. So now there's 18 Dunkin' Donuts in Plymouth. Dunkin' Donuts controls what choices we're going to have. If there were 12 bakeries there, then the bakeries would be producing 12 different, you'd have more choice.
You'd have more choice.
You have no choice.
It'd
with
be to
corporations.
the advantage of the
The
consumer.
corporations decide what you're going to have. Now, they make pumpkin coffee. You know, if you want a cup of coffee, you drink a cup of coffee. I remember one day, a student said to me once, I make broccoli, cheddar cheese bread. So we make up a formula, broccoli, cheddar cheese bread. Sounds good, great marketing thing, broccoli and cheddar cheese, big marketing thing. Says, I don't taste the broccoli. I said, well, here's what you do. You make a loaf of bread, you cook yourself some broccoli, and you get a piece of cheddar cheese. And you eat the bread and the broccoli and the cheddar cheese. We're trying in innovation, and I sometimes argue with Is it innovation or is it marketing? Why can't we be happy with what we have? Why do we have to get watermelons from Chile in the wintertime? Why can't we wait till August to get a good ear of corn? Why do we have to have it year round? Because the local farmer is in control no more. Corporations are controlling it. All the lettuce is grown in California. And
On some giant farm you
I
can't
think
see
there
across.
is a difference in lettuce that is grown in different, we talk about it with wine. We say, oh, this grape grows in this soil, produces a great wine. So chemically, we try to reproduce the soils. Chemically, we generically modify food so the insects don't get to it. And the thing is that generic modification of the foods controlled by chemical companies. And the guy that was growing all the corn in the United States now is GMO corn. And DuPont controls the fertilizer Roundup. And a farmer in Vermont planted corn. And the next farm planted this GMO corn. And it blew over. DuPont sued the farmer for patent infringement.
Imagine.
Yeah, I read about that.
And one.
And they won.
The world has gone crazy.
But you know,
But this guy now, this farmer, he goes all through Europe because Europe won't accept GMO foods. And he talks about this case. He didn't have enough money to go up against DuPont. So he lost the case. It was blown over, or a bird, or somebody brought it over to his farm.
Yeah.
Not that he bought.
but I have to say
Yeah,
that
of course.
the thing that comes right to education is I don't buy this corporate thing. Today we have a big movement, farm to the table. It's growing. It's growing more and more and more, where people really realize that strawberries in the wintertime, you see, there's other fruits which you can use, and what's it called, make good desserts and the whole thing. And more we're going to go back to that thing, what's it called, farm to the table. The problem is that we are so, what's it called, uneducated when it comes to food. We are uneducated right from the school, from the family. There's no more family life. The whole thing is here. So what do you say to the kid? Here's what's it called, $5, buy a burger. Okay, and so the kid right never gets a nice homemade cook like we had here today. That's the first place. Okay, the family is not a family anymore because everybody has to work. So the kids grow up, what's it called, without that type of, like I grew up, my mother cooked. We sat down every day and we cooked, we ate the whole thing. And like Noel said, we had to wait till the adults were finished and then we were allowed to leave the table. Today, go to a restaurant and see the kids that sit there with their little computer. They don't even look what they're eating, they just shove it in. On the other computer, go like this. So it's educational policy is, well, see, I would never allow my son or my daughter, if I had one, to have the computer at the table when I'm eating. We eat together, the family talks, everything. We don't talk anymore. We talk in between commercials and television.
Where you have to text each other, even if you're sitting beside each other.
Yeah, I'm just saying, you see. So our whole system, you see, is in an uproar right now, and the education, what's it called? I mean, our school system is so loused up, you see. But the point is that they don't educate the important. They worry about if what's it called, if you have the word God on the wall, or what this or what you should worry about is the basics of food, of life.
Well, they're selling soda for $1 each to the students in the hallway.
Look at this, Coca-Cola. You put a chicken in Coca-Cola and the next day it's gone.
Dissolved.
Yeah, but we drink this by the gallons, the Coca-Cola, okay? And again,
And how many gallons of water does it take to make 1 gallon
right.
of Coca-Cola?
We have become addicted because there was never ever, look at this today in New York City. They're trying to get away these big heavy sugar drinks. And look at this, the lobbies they have. Of course, yes, there's corporate America there too, but very often it's us also.
Well, here's the thing, I think, let's understand what corporate America